From Madison Square Garden in New York City, this is Tar Heel Illustrated, and I am THI publisher Andrew Jones for another edition of Three Things, this time following number 9 North Carolina's loss to number 5 Connecticut, 87-76, right here at MSG in the Jimmy V Classic. Going to dive into 3 things here in just a moment, very quickly. RJ Davis led the Tar Heels with 26 points. It's the 5th straight game he scored at least 23 points, and he now has 133 points in the last 5 games. Harrison Ingram put in 20 points, and that's after not shooting for the first 10 minutes of the game. And Armando Bacot had his 73rd double-double, 13 points, 13 rebounds. He scored 6 of Carolina's first 8 points. Only scored 7 the rest of the way, only 2 in the second half as well. So the first thing I want to get into is the 18-6 run that Connecticut had to seal the game. Now, I just read a piece a couple days ago about how Carolina's season so far has been marked by big second half eruptions by the Tar Heels, but this time it happened to them. They cut the lead to 65-60 when RJ Davis was going nuts out there doing all kinds of stuff. In fact, I think the points that cut it to 65-60 was when he stole an inbound pass when Carolina went to a press, and he caught the inbound, stole it, and laid it up, and timeout, UConn. And Carolina never got closer. From that point on, UConn outscored the Tar Heels 18-6. Carolina missed 14 of its next 16 shots from the field. I think Carolina's legs looked a little tired. I thought they started to play tired. UConn started looking like the quicker team. I don't necessarily think UConn ever looked like the quicker team up to that point. I thought that they executed better, which sometimes appears quicker. And they picked apart the switches on defense, which is part of the run. Carolina really had a lot of trouble defensively tonight, but I thought the Tar Heels looked tired. Hubert Davis did not play the bench a lot tonight. In fact, someone in the media said to me at the 7:49 mark, at the under 8 time of the second half, he said, "Hey, Hubert's going Iron 5 again." And I had just tweeted out a note that at that point, the bench had only played a combined 29 minutes. In all, the bench played 35 minutes, but UConn's played 47, which is not a whole lot more, but a couple minutes might make a difference with certain guys. But the Heels just didn't, they look, I wouldn't say look panicked, but they look stressed. First time this year, I think that they've looked stressed. And they looked stressed in that situation. They didn't run good offense. There was too much RJ and Harrison. They just weren't getting stuff. A lot of the set plays weren't working. UConn was snuffing them out. And on the other end, UConn abused Carolina switches all night. Finally started hitting the threes in the second half. But that run right there was the decisive run. I asked RJ and Armando in the locker room after the game if they got tired. RJ said, not really. Sometimes just miss shots. Armando said, look, I don't want to make being tired as an excuse, but yeah, I think we got tired. And Hubert deflected as well, which Hubert's going to. But I think they got tired. And it showed in that run. They were done. The fact that this team only lost by 11 is kind of a testament to their fight, even with that run being allowed. The next thing I want to talk about is rebounding. This is not a great Carolina rebounding team. We've known that. Hubert Davis has spoken a few times about the rebounding, how it needs to be better. The offensive rebounding needs to be better. They're not at the percent that they want to be at. They want to be in the 42, 44% range of grabbing their own missed shots. That's what really good teams do. That's what the championship team in 17 did. But this team, that's actually what Roy's last team did. They were great offensive rebounders, but they had a bunch of big guys, obviously. This is not as big a team. It's a totally different composition, but they still need to hit the boards better than they have. Sometimes a shot goes up and there's one guy down the paint battling for a board, and it's whoever the big is. It's either Armando, Jalen Washington. Sometimes Withers will hit the glass. Sometimes Ingram hits the glass, but there's not enough of that. I asked Hubert about the rebounding tonight, and he said, the 3, 4, and the 5 must always go after the glass. Sometimes the 3 and the 4 don't go hit the glass hard. And that was evident tonight. UConn out-rebounded Carolina 43-33, but it seemed like a lot more than that. And part of it's because I think everything Carolina had inside, whether it was offense or rebounding, just seemed very challenged. extremely challenged, didn't come easy. UConn, with a lot of its looks inside, especially after the first 10 minutes of the game, looked much easier. UConn's rebounding looked much easier. There were a couple of cases where the Tar Heels simply didn't box out, but a lot of it was UConn, a longer team, and crashing the boards team, 43-33 rebounding advantage. It was only 11-10 on offensive rebounds, but Carolina missed 7 more shots, so there's a little discrepancy there. Carolina will have a worse offensive rebound percentage. And when you're not shooting well and you're going through something that the Tar Heels went through during that run I just noted, you've got to hit the boards even harder. You got to give yourself extra possessions when you're behind. In offense, every offensive rebound is like an extra possession. And they had 10 tonight. And I think they need to have a higher percentage. 10 on 35 missed shots is not what this team wants. It needs to be higher so they can get more points. Last thing I want to talk about is, what does this mean? Now, on the surface, Carolina was beaten on the defensive end of the floor. The switches didn't work a lot of the time. They got in some bad mismatches, and they just got tangled up. UConn runs a very pristine offense, and they have so many different sets, and they run sets off of sets. They're an exceptionally well-coached team. Danny Hurley is here for the foreseeable future, people. UConn is back. It's back in the Jim Calhoun mode. So that's what Carolina dealt with tonight. As good an offensive set run team as I have seen in person in some time. All right. The Tar Heels didn't handle that well. They did not defend great. Offensively, I don't think the Tar Heels ran good offense, especially during that period in the second half. But even when they cut it to 65-60, a lot of it was just RJ going nuts. The PA guy here at Madison Square Garden, when RJ would score, RJ Davis, he said it in a way almost like he was enjoying the show. And it was a show, and it was a beautiful show. RJ had 7 in the first half. He had 19 in the second half. He's a phenomenal player, having a great year. But this team cannot go into any game against a solid and better opponent riding just one guy or riding even just 2 guys. They're at their best when they're spreading the wealth. The wealth wasn't spread as much tonight. Cormac Ryan struggled from the perimeter, so people are down on him. Pump the brakes. It's December 5th. He's had some good games. He had 15 against what it was Tennessee, and without even getting noticed. He's that kind of guy. You're going to notice the misses, not always going to notice the makes, but he wasn't alone. Armando, like I said, he had 6 the first 8 points, scored 7 the rest of the way, had 2 in the second half. He said that they were being very physical with him. They were pushing him out a little bit and just made the receiving entry passes, made moves to the lane difficult. They started doubling him more, and part of that was Cormac missing and Carolina not getting production from other guys. It kind of went away there for a while. So what this means to me, and let me just add that I noted the rebounding. So the 3 key areas of the game, they were beaten it. They were beaten defensively, they were beaten offensively, and they were beaten on the glass. But they battled. This was an Elite 8 atmosphere with the disbursement of the crowd, with the energy in the building, with the physicality, the chippiness out there on the court, with all the barking going on. This was an Elite 8 atmosphere for most of the night. And the Tar Heels didn't play that well, but they kept fighting. And credit Hubert for going back to that press, which kind of rattled UConn just a pinch and got Carolina some buckets. And I think got them some juice again, but they were close to running out of that juice because I do believe that they tired. But I like the fight. I like the fact that Carolina did not play very well at all and were beaten in the key areas of the game. And they lose by 11 to a club that could win the national championship. There is a national championship fiber DNA in that program now. It's back. And the Tar Heels were in position with Cormac hitting a couple of shots, and then maybe everything's different, even with everything else being the same. So I think that Carolina fans should be very encouraged by what you saw tonight. You should look at this and say, okay, it's a December 5th lesson. It was an opportunity to measure themselves against maybe the best team in America. It was an opportunity to have to fight, scratch, and claw when they didn't play very well and put themselves in position before that run to maybe do something and get to the winner's circle. And they still kept clawing. Even when they were tired, they were still playing hard. They just weren't playing that well. So it's one game in December. It happens. They're going to lose more. I told you guys they're going to lose. They could lose to Kentucky. We'll have to see how it happens in order to evaluate it, but they could lose. It's a very difficult schedule. But this is a good basketball team. It's a basketball team with a lot of good parts. There are some concerns. There's got to be a little bit more production from the bench. Jalen Withers has not played well in recent weeks. Got to figure out how to use Paxson Wojcik. Not really sure about Jalen Washington. He gets pushed around in the paint. He's 6'10" with a long reach, but he doesn't always play 6'10". Kind of plays a little bit smaller sometimes. And Seth Trimble, I think, is a guy who's been consistently good enough in a variety of different scenarios that he probably should get some more minutes to keep guys fresh. And he just changes the way the game is when he's out there. So all in all, I think Carolina fans should be encouraged. Be encouraged that they have the parts. And they showed that tonight, even on a night where they didn't play particularly well. And the team they played probably had its best game of the year. So I think that's a positive. And so take the positive. Stop flooding our Twitter feed with all the negatives. And you're losing your passion for the Tar Heels and all that stuff. That's silly. That's silly talk, guys. Let the season play itself out. They got 10 days between games now. Then they got Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Charleston Southern before it's all ACC the rest of the way. Let this stuff play out. I think they're on the right track. So we'll see what happens. I'm AJ, and I appreciate you checking us out for tonight's solo 3 Things.